Hey guys, hello, hello. Do 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 do. How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone is good. Oh, it's a beautiful day here, guys. Beautiful, beautiful day. Hope everyone's doing great. Today I'm going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, which is about worrying and how I've decreased my worrying significantly in my life. I'm going to tell you how at the end, but I want to talk to you about why it's so important because worrying ruled my life. And so I'm going to talk a little about that, and I'm going to talk about why the worrying didn't help and why when I stopped worrying so much, which I know it sounds impossible to do, but when I stopped worrying so much, things got so much better in my life. The opposite of what I thought was going to happen. The opposite, and how it really helped me improve my relationship with my husband, with my friends, with my kids, with everything, and with myself, frankly. So I hope everyone's doing well. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I will be checking these comments throughout the week. For some reason, I'm having a hard time checking them on LinkedIn, but if you're in my Facebook group or you're on LinkedIn or if you're on YouTube, I do check comments. Um, and if you're watching this live, I would love to, say hello, tell me what you think. I would love to know if there are other things you want to know more about because there's so much to talk about here, whether it's about worry or other negative emotions or comedy or compassion, all my favorites. All right. So I just want to let you know that if you tend to worry, first of all, you're not alone. And I totally get it. I totally get it. I grew up in a household that felt like it was held together by worry. And I'm not blaming anyone here. It's just sort of how the history of my mom in particular, she lived through um, World War II. Her parents lived through World War One. They went through the Depression. Then there was a lot of tumult in the 60s and 70s. There were a lot of reasons why you could say it's reasonable for someone to worry. And I am one of 6 children. So my mother was not just worrying, but she was all over the place in terms of making sure everyone was safe and doing what they needed to do and being healthy. So, and by the way, I think my mom was sort of an Olympian mom in that she managed to make mothering look really easy with 6 kids, which is quite the accomplishment. And I have 3, which a lot of people think is a lot. So I had half as much. And after my first kid, I felt like, wow, I had no idea what my mother was going through, and she had 6. So anyway, she had a lot on her plate, and her go-to thing, the big tool in her toolkit was worry. So she worried about if we were safe, she worried about what we were eating, she worried about where we were going, what we were doing, who we were with. That was a big one when I was a teen. Who are you with? Um, so worry was very normal in our family. And as a result, even though I did a lot of eye rolling with my mom about her worries, I then took on that role of being someone who worries. And anxiety is definitely part of my background. When I was in therapy, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, which it's just a very common diagnosis. There's a lot of anxiety in my family. So anyway, it's just part of the culture of our family. Um, and so when I became a mom, in particular, the worry went up. And I thought I was actually a pretty chill mom, and maybe I was chill compared to other people, but the worry started ramping up. Worrying around the pregnancy, worrying about the birth, worrying about the newborn, worrying about the toddler, worrying about the stages, worrying about this, worrying about that. There was a lot to worry about. And like my mom, I felt that worrying not only was my only tool. It was the best tool. That just I couldn't comprehend that there's something else besides worry as a tool. Um, Although on occasions I was chill about stuff, but worry would always pop up. Anytime there was a blip, worry would come up. Let me know in the comments if this sounds familiar to you, if this is something that you've had happen, that you can relate to this, or maybe you know someone who worries a lot in your life. So, like any tool, it worked in a lot of circumstances. Just like a hammer works a lot. But if worry or a hammer is the only thing in your toolkit, then everything looks like a nail. Everything looks like something that you need to worry about. So when I was able to find the right tools for me that would help me with my worry, and even that took a lot of convincing because I was convinced that I was just safer if I worried. Can anyone relate to that? That you have to worry. It makes you feel safe. It keeps you safe. Not even just makes you feel safe, it keeps you safe, right? That was definitely my belief, that the worry itself would be like a fortress. I had plans. I could plan things out. I knew what I was going to do. If this happened, I knew I was going to do that. It was like a whole chessboard. That worry would give me good ideas to protect me, that it would make me not be blindsided by unexpected events. I had them all figured out, right? Can anyone relate to this? Just put in the comments if you can relate to it. But so it was great short term for a lot of things. And then, of course, there was always something that would happen that I go, whew, thank God I was paying attention to that, because that could have been a disaster. There were many times where I thought this worry led me to pay attention to this. And because I paid attention to this, and it was a good thing because it avoided a problem, sometimes a really bad problem. So anyway, worry was the best tool for me up to a point. And the point that I got to was that I started to develop or redevelop a lot of anxiety. I was not enjoying my children. I was just worried about them all the time. There was always something to worry about. It was hard to be around me. I was a little high strung. It was like I was always looking for, on the table, the glass to be spilled. I was always anticipating the spill, right? So that's like what worry did for me. It was like this superhuman power where I could see where the spills were going to happen and I could catch them, right? And I felt really good about that. Save the day. But anyway, over time, having worry produces certain hormones in your body and stress hormones. And I was diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, which is not great. It's just you're in a state of constant nervousness. It's hard to sleep. I fueled my worry with caffeine, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you tend to worry and you're having caffeine, it just kind of ramps it up. So my adrenals just said, I can't do this anymore. I just can't keep pumping this. I can't be in emergency state all the time. And I had adrenal fatigue. So that was not pleasant, but it was kind of the alarm bells going off saying you can't do this all the time. And by the way, the doctor that diagnosed this said a lot of moms have this, like almost all have it. So even though my health was being affected, I still was not convinced on some level that worry was an issue or a detriment, because I kept thinking, but I need to do that. Until they're 35, I'm going to worry, right? But this is what happened. So I got to the point where not just had adrenal fatigue, but then I had sort of a depression come on, and that felt really bad. So I went from anxiety to depression and didn't know why exactly. But I was starting to have thoughts that no one should have. It's not great thoughts. And that's not usual for me. And then I thought, this is a problem. I'm having thoughts that doesn't even go with my personality. So that turned out to be a really good thing because, how all these things, something bad happens and then you realize later that was probably good for it to happen because then I discovered X, Y, and Z. So what I discovered was some tools that a friend was using that was really helping with her triggers and her emotions. And I just begged her, I'm like, can I just try it? See if it works. And she's like, yeah, yeah. So she let me use the tool. And halfway through the process of using the tool, I noticed that the stuff that I was worried about was gone. Like I didn't even know what I was worried about at the time. And that was revelatory for me that like maybe 5, 7 minutes into this thing that I was doing, it was an audio tool. I couldn't even grasp onto the thing I was worried about. And I went, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I am free. I am free from this. It felt so good. There was so much relief there. So then I decided, okay, where'd you get this? Who did you work with? So she guided me to that person. And I started working with her over months. And she introduced me to not just that tool, but a number of tools. So it was tools about when I have, when I'm triggered, when I have tense emotion, whether it's worry, fear, stress, frustration. And then there were other tools that dealt with just what my beliefs were that were creating the emotion, and then how to make new beliefs. So there were 3 or 4 tools that I used. And I used them over time. And sometimes I'd use them more than once because, when you're worried, you start worrying about everything. I had to do it about a couple different things. But over time, I noticed that I was just less worried. And it made logical sense to me. My children started to get a little older. And I thought, when they reach 18, I'm just not going to worry anymore. And so they did. And I just decided, okay, it's their life. I'm not in charge anymore. And I also, by the way, though, part of the worry was that I was going to be held responsible for any terrible thing that happened. That I didn't want to get blamed by history, by them, by my husband, by society, that I screwed my kids up. So I worked on that belief because that drove everything. That really made me miserable. And that was part of the worry, which I'm sure my mother had too. And once that got broken, and I stopped feeling like worrying about being responsible or blamed, then the whole card deck, whatever, the house of cards, just collapsed. And I realized like I had been living my life as a parent worrying not just about my kids, but how I would be perceived and how I would be judged based on what I was doing or not doing with them. So if anyone can relate to that, let me know. Just put it in there if that sounds relatable. Worrying about how I'm going to be judged, worrying about my responsibilities. So I use the tools. I stopped worrying. There's still worries that come up from here and there, but now I have a tool to deal with them so I don't worry about having worries. But this is what happened. This is what happened and what helped me to convince me that worrying itself does not make you safe. So the first thing that I noticed when I let go of worry, was I felt more capable. Okay, I felt more capable. What I started saying to myself out loud was, stuff's going to happen. If I worry about it, that's actually going to deplete me of energy. So I'll know if I need to do something. I'll just know it. So just really believing that, I felt more capable and I felt more relaxed and less depleted. Man, wouldn't that be great if you could feel relaxed and less depleted? Like I just had more energy, I had more focus, and I felt more capable. And in general, I tend to be optimistic, but I started to be more optimistic. More optimistic. And if anyone here has studied the brain, you know that if you're feeling good, you're going to act and respond differently to whatever happens than if you're not feeling good. And my hormonal makeup felt better. I wasn't running on adrenaline all the time. So that was more than enough evidence that this is a good thing for me. to not be worried all the time. But here is the cherry on top. I didn't realize that when I stopped worrying, it was going to affect me and my kids, our relationship. So here is the cherry. I realized that when I stopped worrying, I noticed my kids had their own worries and concerns. But I also noticed that they were so much more open to talk to me and open up than before, because I did not respond with all of my worries with them. I stopped doing that because they weren't there. And you can kind of feel that with someone. You can kind of feel if they're worried, even if they're not saying it. So what happened is it shifted from they didn't want to tell me something could be a problem because then I would make it bigger. And they knew that I could be relied upon just to listen and not voice all of my worries with them. In other words, my kids would say, "Mom, I don't need a TED talk about this," And it's true. I would go off on a 5-10 minute mini TED talk about why this decision is worrisome. So in other words, they felt more comfortable and safe just talking about how they were feeling without getting any confirmation from me that they should worry about it or what my worries were about it. So it's like talking to your friend, right? There are friends that you have that are worried, and maybe I've noticed that I can be a little hesitant to talk to some friends who worry a lot because they're just going to give me all their worries, and I don't want to hear their worries. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear, I get it. I hear you. You're capable. You could keep this or that in mind, but there's no lots of worries and anxiety going in there. So that was one. That was huge. That was a huge cherry on top of the sundae with my kids. And then the other thing I noticed is that not only did I feel more capable in my life, that they started to feel more capable. They started feeling more capable because they were not in this soup of worry all the time. And if they were worried, they could be with me and they wouldn't have to worry so much because I was providing a container of not worrying, just like, you got it. You'll figure it out. I trust that you'll handle it well. You can always come to me if you have a question. So in other words, as my worry went down, my trust in their ability to figure things out sooner or later went up. And when my trust in them went up, their trust in themselves went up. So that was not something I was expecting. And then here's another cherry. The more they felt trust in themselves, the more likely they were to come to me if they did need something or advice or suggestion, because it wasn't going to come from a worry place. It was going to come from a place of, I believe in you. I trust that you'll figure this out. If you're looking for advice, this is what I would say. Because I wasn't pushing it on them. They didn't feel pressure to take it, and it wasn't fear-based. So they're not only more likely to talk to me, they're more likely to even ask me for my 2 cents. What do I feel about it? Because I'm not pushing it on them. No one likes unsolicited advice. And believe me, it took years for me to figure this out, and decreasing my worry of being judged. And I'm not trying to solve their problem. It's their problem. I'm a soft place to land to talk about it, but I trust that they will figure it out. And if they need support, they need support. I'm there. So I wanted to tell you all this because I know that worry is one of those things that plagues moms all the time, but that sometimes it's the only tool in your toolkit that you're aware of, and it feels like the best one because it keeps you safe. And I'm just here to tell you that you can still be aware of things and still be focused on things, but you're much more likely to deal with things and not be depleted if you're not worrying all the time. And I know that from my own experience. And it doesn't mean that unexpected things aren't going to happen, because they are. That's part of life. But man, imagine you being able to deal with them not from a depleted place, but from a place of more neutrality, a place of strength, a place from feeling capable, trusting yourself is completely different. So, real quick, I wanted to tell you about an opportunity to do what I did, which was to try these tools that really help with worry. And that is, I'm going to have a free event on Monday, May 5th. So that's this Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's noon Pacific. It's only in the Calm Mom Alliance Facebook group. So you have to be a member of the Calm Mom Alliance Facebook group, which is really easy. Just join the Facebook group. And in the event section, you'll see an event called Calm is the New Crushing It, Subconscious Reprogramming for the Overwhelmed Brain. And you go right there, just RSVP, so you get notified and reminded, because we all need reminding for these workshops. And it's going to go for 1 hour. And in that 1 hour, you're not only going to hear what these tools do and what the possibilities are for you, but you're going to actually experience the tools that I use to decrease those intense emotions that you want to let go of. So if you have something you want to let go of, whether it's worry or fear or frustration or judgment or whatever it is, come to this event. Calm is the New Crushing It, so that you can experience the decrease of that emotion. And then you can also see that that emotion really isn't helping you after the initial feeling of it. The constant of it is not helping you. It's depleting you, and it's keeping you stuck. And it's actually could be hurting your relationship with your kids. Look, being a professional mom can be really hard, as we all know, and it can really suck sometimes, but it also can be one of the best adventures of your life. And life gets way better when you befriend and believe in yourself, when you have a supportive community, and when you can laugh at what usually drives you crazy, which also these tools help you do, because you're worth it. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments sections. I hope you have a great day. And what else do I want to tell you? So come to the workshop on Monday, May 5th. Calm is the New Crushing It, only in Calm Mom Alliance. Please join us if you haven't already. I hope to see you there, and hope you have an amazing day. Okay, take care. Bye, guys.